Yeah, I'm so excited. There is so much cool stuff going on in the background that I can't wait to tell you guys about, and I will. But rather than tell you what I'm going to do, I'd rather tell you what I've done. So we're holding off on that. But I got lots of cool stuff going on. But for today, we are talking about stuff that I've already done. So we're going to take a look at some dyno results on 5-liter Ford stuff. So you're the 5-liter Ford. I'm a big fan, obviously, despite the fact that I get, oh, you're just a Chevy guy, or you're just a Ford guy, or you're just a Dodge guy, or you're just a Honda guy. I've gotten all that. You're just a Sprint guy. Went down the Sprint road, went down the modular Ford road. You're just that guy. You're just that guy. People don't have anything better to say. The reality is I'm more of an engine guy than anything, and I like all of them, but particularly the 5-liter Ford because it's one of the cars that I bought new. Still have it, a 5-liter LX of 1988, first year of the mass air meter in the California only car, which I lived in California when I bought the car, so that's what we had, and it worked out really good. This might have been one of my favorite 5-liter Ford dyno sessions, only because we got so much data and it all worked out so well. And naturally, a big part of that is ahead of time doing all the prep. So we had a good motor that was ready to go. We did the tuning we did the tuning right. There were no problems with it. Nothing, we didn't leave anything loose. We didn't try too much timing. We didn't try too much boost. We didn't do any of that stuff. All the things worked out. We had the right push rod lengths for everything. We had the right rockers and on all of that stuff. And it just went really, really nicely through the whole test. And we were able to test a lot of different things. Now, the only other thing that I can say is that when you're doing this stuff, the order at which you do these tests also helps indicate the eventual results. Because if we put, if you have a stock, otherwise stock combination, and you put a camshaft in it, the camshaft's not worth as much. Not because the cam can't make a lot of power, it can. But if it's limited by head flow and intake flow and throttle body or stock exhaust manifolds or whatever, it's just not going to add as much power. It can, but it's not going to in that situation. After you put cylinder heads on, same thing. If you put a set of ported heads like airflow research heads or some kind of good head on there, and you put those on where everything else is stock, they're just not going to be worth very much power because you don't have the other things. The rest of the motor can't take advantage of the airflow offered by like a ported set of heads, like an airflow research 185 head in this case, that you would probably use for a 302 or a 347, 331 kind of Ford stroker deal. So the order that we do this test in, also consider that when we're talking about all these results, because I want to go over some dyno results. So this was a excuse me, started out as a stock 5-liter Ford. It did have forged flat top pistons in it with valve relief so that we could run camshaft in it. The inline valve. This particular head, a lot of times when we do these 5-liter Ford things, we would do a dual relief piston so that it would have inline valve head reliefs and then also twisted wedge head valve reliefs, because twisted wedge heads were very, very popular back in the day, especially for the 5-liter stuff. And we use them a lot and they're very good. I always like those heads and they did very well. But we on this particular combination, the pistons that we use are only inline valve. So that meant we could only use inline valve stuff. We ended up using RHS heads on this only because Westech had those laying around. And I don't know why I didn't put airflow research heads on those. We had those back in the day. And the 165 and 185 head that you would put on a 302 like this, where this one was a 306, worked very well. And I kind of would have liked to have seen that, but the RHS heads that we had, and they worked really well. But we ran this motor in stock trim. It had an electric water pump on it, so it didn't have accessories the way that we normally run it. It had stock exhaust manifolds, and then also we tried shorty headers on it, and it had a 2.5-inch exhaust back behind there, but not the factory H pipe or any of that stuff, no cats or anything like that. And it had an optimized tune, had a stock throttle body, and then the stock HO intake manifold, the upper and lower, and stock E7 heads and the stock HO camshaft and stuff. So when we ran this thing made 252 horsepower the way that we ran it on the engine dyno. They're rated at 225. That's actually a lot closer to the factory output than other things that I've tested. Usually the gain from the way that we run it versus the rated output is much higher than that, because let's face it, you're getting rid of accessories, you're getting rid of the restrictive air inlet system, you're getting rid of the exhaust, and you're putting an optimized tune in it, and we're running the water colder. So normally the gains are bigger than that. But most of these 5 liters, and I've run a number of them on the dyno, they're all right around that range. So this one made 252 horsepower. And then when we put headers on it, we put long tube headers on it, and that jumped up about 10 horsepower, 261 horsepower. So it went from 252 to 261. So 9 horsepower there, 10 horsepower gains in other spots, and headers, long tube headers like they normally do. And this is a common misconception that's still out there, and I don't understand. It makes me want to shake people. Long tube headers are better for low speed power. Long tube headers are better than stock manifolds. Long tube headers are better than shorty headers. Long tube headers are better than mid-length headers for low speed power. In fact, for power everywhere, long tube headers are the way to go through the entire RPM range. The other ones are a trade-off from that optimized combination. So stock exhaust manifolds, not great. Shorty headers also don't usually do very much. Mid-length headers can do some. Long tube headers do a lot. So that if you get that in your brain, shorty headers do not add low speed power. You get much better scavenging from full-length headers. So on our 5 liter Ford, we went from 252 horsepower to 261 horsepower with the headers. Then we put a GT40 intake manifold on it, GT40 upper and lower, to replace the 5 liter HO stuff. The power went up to 279 horsepower. So not a ton from the GT40 intake over the factory HO intake manifold. That was 18 horsepower. Then after that, we put the a camshaft in. I put a 274 cam in because that seems like the one that I put on every 5 liter Ford. Frosty cold beverage. And then we put the camshaft in, and the power went up from 279 horsepower to 312 horsepower. So pretty good gains, 20, 30, 33 horsepower. So far, that was really the biggest gain that we got, was putting the camshaft in. And note, when we put the camshaft in, we still had the stock heads on it. So we're still restricting what the camshaft can do, because we've made more than 400 horsepower with that camshaft. So it will support that if you have the other things going for it. Then we did cylinder heads. In this case, we did a set of RHS. I think that they were CNC ported Pro Elite heads or something. I don't even know the designations for the RHS heads. And at any rate, they flowed way better, bigger ports, bigger valves, more flow. Obviously, then it's pretty easy to be better than a stock E7TE head. Run with those heads, but still with the GT40 intake manifold, it made 354 horsepower. So that gained us 42 horsepower. So it gained a little more than the camshaft did. But again, like I was talking about, if we swap those two around, the order that you test those in is going to dictate what kind of gains you get in each step. But at any rate, so we got picked up another 40 horsepower or so from cylinder heads. Then we put a different intake manifold on there, because this was kind of what was holding the thing back. The GT40 intake manifold is pretty good. It's obviously better than the factory intake, the factory upper and lower HO intake manifold. But we put a ported Holley Systemax intake manifold on it, which the Systemax is already good by itself, and it would be a good gain over a GT40 intake. We had the guys at extrude hone the intake manifold, so poured it so it flowed even more. And when we did that, we went from 354 to 395 horsepower. So we picked up 41 horsepower from the intake manifold. So, similar gain there between the intake manifold and the heads. And again, the order that you're doing that in. And had we done the heads and the intake and then the camshaft, then the camshaft would have looked like a hero. Again, it's the order at which you do this. And then the final thing that we did with this combination, at least NA, is we added our first power adder to it, and that was nitrous. We just put a 100 shot on it. It was a Zex wet EFI thing where you're combining the nitrous and fuel into a single fogger nozzle. We aimed it we mounted it in a tube before the throttle body, and hit it with a 100 shot, and the power jumped up to 509 horsepower. So it added a little more than 100 horsepower. It added 114 horsepower. So it did good. it did exactly what you would expect of nitrous. You hit it with a 100 shot, you get about 100. You get about 100 horsepower. It works pretty good. Sometimes it's a little more. We make sure that when we run nitrous, and Steve Brule has had this nitrous program for a long time, or procedure. So we go through this process where we heat the bottle up, get that up to temperature, get the pressure built up in the bottle correctly, and then we verify the fuel flow using this flow orifice, at least on the carbureted stuff. On the EFI stuff, we just jet it so that we get the right combination of air fuel. And we took off 4 degrees of timing for this thing. And so like I said, it had a little more than 100 horsepower. Then we put a single turbo on. So this was a turbo kit from HP Performance. It had an air-to-air intercooler on it. It had a single 72 millimeter turbo on it. And we tuned this thing on a mixture of 91 and 100. We ran 10, 11 pounds on it. And the power went up from 395 up to 622 horsepower. And this is like 10 and a half pounds. So it did very, very well. And like I said, we were very happy with it, and made about that same amount of torque too. Let's see here. Actually made more torque, made 622 horsepower and 637 foot-pounds of torque, primarily because the boost curve wasn't perfectly flat. We just had a manual wastegate controller on it. So the boost was actually a little higher in the middle part, but at the boost level, 10 and a half pounds or so at the horsepower peak. It was a little higher than that at the torque peak, which is why we made more peak torque than peak horsepower. That's pretty normal. The boost curve can definitely have an effect on what works. But so let's go through here. So we picked up 9 horsepower from the headers. GT40 intake manifold picked up 18. And we picked up 33 horsepower from the cam. Picked up 42 from the heads. Picked up 41 from the extrude hone ported Systemax intake manifold. We picked up 9 and 5, 114 from the nitrous, and then a lot from the turbo. 222, 227 horsepower from the turbo. So that worked out good. And again, like I said, it just went like, and it doesn't always do this. In fact, a lot of times it doesn't do this. It just all went smoothly and worked out well. And this was a great experience. And experiences like this, when I do this kind of testing and it works out like this, and I get this much data, which is really good. That's why I keep doing this on the ones where you put it on there and you don't get any data and you spend all day and then it breaks, like the recent stuff that I did with it didn't break, but with the Dodge 2.2 is a perfect example on that. I spent, 3 or 4 days trying to make the Dodge 2.2 work, but we weren't able to do that. And same thing with recently with the truck. When we put the blower on the truck, it didn't work. It didn't want to cooperate. And we'll figure it out, but we just didn't then. And so it takes sometimes it takes a lot of time and a lot of struggling and more than a few curse words to make it all work. But sometimes it works like this, and it was like an awesome deal. See, we're gonna do a double deal here. Okay. Get my poll going. Okay, which one would you rather have? Would you choose an LS swap over mods and a turbo for a 5-liter Mustang? So would you just modify what you got, or would you swap till you drop? See what you guys got going on. Eric, more power. What's going on? Frosty Cold Beverage. Intake mods to $4 worth it. Yeah, the factory 5-liter stuff is. We did a lot of extrude honing on the factory 5-liter stuff. I did a lot of stuff with those guys, and great guys over to shout out to Ed and Bob out there and all the people at Extrude Home. They were just fantastic to me, and I can't say enough nice things about them, about what kind of good people they are. And we did a lot of they did a lot of porting, and they had a flow bench, and so they were doing a lot of work to try to equalize all the flow and all the runners. Not easy given the differences in the runners snaking around the distributor and stuff on the Ford stuff. But it was an interesting deal. I kind of wish we would have done more than just the airflow stuff, which was good, and the porting, which is good. I wish we could have backed up more of that stuff with some dyno data back then and found out hey, what happens if we port them all and we improve the flow rate by, I don't know, let's say 50 or 60 CFM per runner on all of them. Is that worth power? We know that it is, but now if we went and then on the ports that flow less than the others or not the same, we make them all flow the same. Is that worth anything additional? Do we want them all to flow the same, even though the runner length and design might not be the same? Is the flow the important thing, or is the runner length and the shape the important thing? Do we see any gain there? I wish we could have done some of that, because that would be really good information to have. I mean, it's esoteric, and it's people quibbling about very small things, but that's what we're all about, right? Is a Parker funnel whip for a 302 worth it? Yeah, it depends. I've been told, and I haven't directly tested this, but I think I still have it, an original Parker funnel web that Parker did before the guys from Speedmaster kind of took over that program. But I was told that the later ones don't work as well as the earlier ones. Every time I ran a funnel web, the one that I had, and we compared it like to a Victor Jr., the funnel web always did better. Our Victor Jr. head's good compared to an E7TE head. Yeah, any aftermarket head is going to be better than an E7TE head. The Victor Juniors themselves are not like, they're not an airflow research head, or they're not a 11R head from Trickflow. They're not anything like that, but they are better than a factory head. And for an aftermarket cam for a 5-liter, that 274 cam is a good mix of performance and drivability. If you want more drivability, I would definitely consider going smaller. Yeah, any Edelbrock head is going to be better than E7T. Even a GT40P is a 30 or 40 horsepower improvement over a stock head. Neil, what's going on? You're late, Mr. Hond. Well, isn't this really our time? I want to see you try some of the Howard's cams. I've run a couple of Howard's cams on things in the past, but not the LS stuff. I'm sure that they do well. If they have the specs, they're going to make the power like all the other ones do. How about VVC or VTEC cams? VTEC cams are good. I've run lots of VTEC Honda stuff. Where's Prestige? Yeah, he's more of a modular Ford guy, but that's all good. You'll fill in. Are you going to say modular power? There you go. Nitrous also chills beards after the best run. Yep. When we were running what also works good is the ice water for the air to water intercooler that we ran on our Bonneville car. That would keep beverages cold too. So you could celebrate at the end or commiserate at the end, depending on how the run went. But celebrate at the end when your car goes fast. Did we ever figure out if a main cap girdle is worth the money? I think it's a good idea because I don't think it can hurt anything. It can only make things better. But the problem with a 5-liter block, like the issue with it splitting, a main cap girdle doesn't do anything to alleviate that. And I don't know if it gets into that particular problem where it splits up before it gets into the cap rigidity issue. His main girdle. Is that like a turtle, but a girdle? Look at F1 technology. Pretty much all I use a low girdle. Usually the Formula One stuff I thought was more like a 1.8 liter, the GSR and the Type R blocks, where the main is one big bridge assembly, where the whole thing goes on as one unit and not a secondary bolt-on piece, I thought, but I could be wrong about that. I mean, I've only seen a few Formula One motors, but can the LS also have a turbo? Yeah, you can have anything that you want. You can do whatever you need. LS is blasphemy. It's a good engine, no doubt, but I'd rather have a Coyote. Yeah, it's expense and is a little bit more on that. The LS is a Ford motor, so it's fine either way. It's Ford on Ford action. What's the limitations of a factory speed density? I want a little more power out of my Bronco. I think if you tune it, that's not going to be an issue, right? Do people still have stuff to go in and tune the ECU, or do you have to do a mass air swap on that, a mass air upgrade on that before you do tuning on the factory ECU? Does anybody know? It's been a long time since I looked at that stuff. Mark might know. Recently saw a rear-wheel drive Chevy Beretta conversion. Wow. On a per cube basis, the Coyote makes more power. Yep, it's just limited in its size. 6-liter Coyote would be cool, or a 7-liter. We use the original Parker funnel web. Those are good. And I don't think I've ever tried a ported version of that, though. Let's see. Ford has aluminum 4.5-inch bore. Anyone making power has gotten rid of that old stuff. Oh, gotten rid of the old EEC4 stuff. Have you tested an electronic wastegate? No, the guys from TurboSmart have those. I've never tried one because I've never really had a problem controlling wastegates with electronic wastegate controllers. But I don't know what that would do. It's not going to do anything for us really on the engine dyno. My significant other is like a Coyote motor, costs more, bigger footprint. I think the electronic wastegate is cat's meow. Okay. I second the Howard's camshaft testing because they are about 30% cheaper than everyone on OE small block Chevy cams. Cam, I'd have to go back and look and see which Howard's cams. I think that the ones that I tested were ones that I got when I was doing stuff with the guys from Speedmaster. I'm thinking it was small block Chevy. Joyous. I've only personally ever seen one 5-liter block split, and that was 700 horsepower twin turbo 2-ton Falcon in 2000. I had the guys at HP Performance have split one at the drag strip. Is the poll talking Coyote 5-liter or 5.0? No, the original 5.0 Mustang. Nobody's going to swap or I haven't seen or really heard of people taking Coyotes out and swapping LSs into it. That doesn't seem like it would make sense. Electric gates will eliminate the need for pro-charged Hemis, so it could be said the E-gates are cheaper if you want to make same power with twins on a big block Chevy. Is there an advantage to changing the firing order? I've read that the block splitting issue can be mitigated by changing the firing order. I don't know why that would be the case. Neil, you're right, Richard. One piece lower, I've heard as the girdle of the lower block. Yeah. And do they use, I need to go back and look at that Ferrari book that I have. I don't know if they were running deep skirt blocks like with cross bolts on it for that assembly. I can't remember. Yeah, 7-liter Coyote would be even better than a 6-liter Coyote. We've also broken 4 blocks in half of the main girdle and solid. Yeah, all it does is hold the thing together so it's not slinging pieces everywhere. But usually what happens is it splits up from that main up to the cam journals, and then it loses oil pressure is the first thing that you see. They make a 6.2 Coyote called the Boss 6.2 and the Raptor, but that's not a Coyote motor. The Gen 5 electronic power gate external gate is $1,300. I read that Blueprint engines are making a 5-liter block that's beefed up for rigidity. I don't recall if they're 4-bolt mains though. I don't know. I have to take a look at and see if they've got their own block. Has anyone 3D printed a copy of a fast intake manifold for an LS? Why would you do that? I mean, it seems like it would cost you as much to do that as it would just to buy a fast. Do electronic wastegates tend to get overly hot and cause issues? I don't know. I don't know about the usage on that. The 5.0 doesn't large tow at low RPM. I don't know what you mean by that, but the chat's working. I see all the peeps. Yeah, we made lots of power with the GTO. I don't know if you're talking about the LS stuff or the 5-liter stuff, but we made good power with the stock computer stuff. The thing that I liked about having the stock computer was the drivability was always really nice. Would E-gates help for your boost testing, less creep or climb perhaps? I don't know. I don't know that they would have any better control than the because I don't know how their actuation is. I don't know if it's a solenoid operated thing. It's still got to have a spring in it though, right? I don't know exactly what they're doing there. But if we have an electronic controller, usually we can get pretty close on boost. If there's a variation in boost, it's probably not from a lack of or an ineffectiveness of the gates. It's probably more a repeatability problem of the turbo combination on the dyno. I talked to the guys at TurboSmart about that a little bit. I was concerned about the heat, but Marty said that no, they work well. Would you choose an LS swap over mods and a turbo on the 5-liter Mustang? 64% saying no. 2/3. They operate like a drive-by-wire throttle body. Yeah, all of that's good. But for my market, that's not a thing. Obviously, I need to do a live feed on electronic wastegates too. All right, I need an interview with Marty would be good on that. Yeti Betty. And we're clicking and we're clicking and we're clicking. We're clicking and we're deleting. As soon as I get on my live feed, that's when everybody calls me back. Yeah, Marty's a good guy. And I know enough, I think, to ask the right questions. And so we can find out some information. It's hard to beat the way a small block Ford Mustang sounds when it's right. Yeah, especially with the right exhaust. I think that they sound cool. He keeps calling me, man. That's right. Bunty, what's going on? Is $1,000 for a 6-liter decent price? I think that that's probably a realistic price. Oh, and if it comes with a harness and stuff, yeah, that should be good. As long as are you planning on using that? I mean, I don't like buying things I don't use. Way back in the day, now I have to say that because all the changes with the wrecking yards now. But man, we used to throw a lot of stuff away because I would get the motors and you'd buy complete motors, and a complete motor meant everything. It had all the accessories on it, had the intake, had all that stuff on it. And then we would just take all that stuff and throw it away. I kind of wish I would have kept a bunch of that stuff now. I'm really excited about the BTR cannon valve heads. I have some dyno data from the cannon valve stuff because those heads are impressive. And Brian and I have talked about this for a really long time now. But and when they were doing the initial testing, because you design something and then you make it and then you test it and then you make it better and then you test it and you make it better and test it and go through all that procedure, which is really cool. Sometimes guys, and this is a conversation we had, I said sometimes guys just make something and test it and go, okay, that's done. But if you set a goal and say, hey, I want my head to be the best head out there, you normally don't hit that on your first go round. So you have to keep adjusting it and making it better and making it better and making it better until it actually is that thing, till you actually achieve your goal. It's like going out and wanting to be the best MMA fighter or the best marathoner or the best miler or whatever, ping pong player, whatever it is. It takes a good bit of work and dedication to make that happen. And they've been doing a lot of work on those heads. And the fact that they've made a canned valve head when it's that much different than the original stuff. I mean, the factory the intake's all bolt on, the exhaust and all of that stuff works, and the valve cover and stuff, which is no easy feat. I mean, they have Rick from Trick Flow fame over there, and lots of other things that people don't know about. He's that guy really is a legend, and so he's really, really good at what he does. But that head is doing very, very well. Is the upshot of all this stuff. It's making a good bit of power. Yep, BTR has a cannon valve heads for both cathedral port and rec port applications. And their cannon valve head fits on a small bore, which is awesome. Get away, what's going on? If it costs you $1,000 for the engine, $1,000 for the trans, it might be worth it, assuming it all ran okay. Richard, do you know anybody in the industry who needs a good engine builder and cylinder head guy? I attended courses at Samtech in 2008, had a shop for 15 years and had a bike wreck and had to close it. The guys from Nelson, Tom Nelson was looking for engine guys. So talk to the guys at Nelson Racing. I don't know if they're still looking for that, but they were looking for a guy. That's right, Neil. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Grab all the stuff that you can. More reading tonight. BTR cannon valve heads. Yeah, Brian has stuff on their on Facebook and Instagram on those. What is a canted valve head? It means the valve angles are cattywampus. A good example of a cannon valve head is a Cleveland head or a big block Chevy head. Yeah, happy to help, man. Richard, if you know anyone at Ford Performance, sponsor one of the last Boss 302 long blocks for testing. I don't really know anybody there. Oddly enough, you would think that they would know like who I am and what I've done on Ford stuff. I actually wrote a book for Ford Performance back in the day. Cattywampus, that's right. I was trying to think the other day where I first heard that. And I think it goes all the way back to my, now I just remembered. I think that goes all the way back to my woodshop teacher that I had when I was in junior high. I think that's where it's from. I remember our first project was he cut a board so that it wasn't square. The edges weren't square. He had one side, one corner that was square. And then he gave you a dado plane, if you guys know what that is. And then you were supposed to make everything else square with that plane, and not by cutting it, not on the saw. He said, you can't take this home. You can't go cut it on your saw and make it work. So you had to take off the high spots and then get it all even. It was good. I do like Bill Murray too. I was wondering why I couldn't log into Facebook. Figured they booted me or something. I had that problem too, and I think everybody else did too. I haven't been able to go on yet, and I just went through a thing. I thought, oh great, somebody just hacked my Facebook thing, but apparently it's Facebook wide. Yeah, we all thought that we were banned. I couldn't ever remember because I hadn't posted anything in quite a while. So I'm like, why would they kick me out now? I haven't done or said anything. I'm not. I don't post like political nonsense. And in fact, I try to get rid of all of the people that I follow that post that stuff, even if they're car guys, but they post political stuff. I just like, I'm not interested, dude. I don't care what side of the thing you're on. You're posting stuff and you're saying that your thing is good and everybody else is bad, and you need to grow up. So I get rid of those guys. And I'm also thinking now about all of these guys that highlight their stuff, which is a new thing on Facebook. I guess it tells everybody about their thing. When you do a post and you do this highlight nonsense, I think I'm getting rid of you too. So for the guys here, don't do that. Question: is it better to have a light flywheel or heavy or something in the middle? I have conflicting opinions on it for a daily driven weekend motor on a 5-liter. I would just run a standard weight flywheel on a daily driver 5-liter. A lightened flywheel will show power gains in acceleration, but unless you're wanting something that has good response to throttle, like a road race car is a good example. Otherwise, I wouldn't worry about it. Facebook forces you to post political stuff. I don't think that they come to your house and say, hey, you have to post this kind of stuff. I think you can post stuff about your car and your turbo and all of that. I think that the last thing that was on Instagram. The last thing that I posted on Instagram actually was a snake thing. It was the little gopher snake that I caught. A chance to get some head, small blocks, but they were offset valves. I only ever saw that on the big block. Is that old school? No, on some of the higher performance small block Chevy heads, they move the valve over so that it basically did they move the valve position or did they just move the rocker position because they moved the push rod? I think that they moved the push rod position because the push rod pinch in the port is a problem. So you move the push rod over, but to do that, you have to have an offset rocker to be able to do that. Do you recall 90s advice was a heavy flywheel for manual turbo engines? I don't recall that being a universal thing. And there is some argument for stored inertia on these things too. Because when you're revving the motor at the starting line, you're not hurting anything. And stored inertia, once you get it going, can help stuff. Let me know when you see a Godzilla in the yard. Yeah, I haven't seen any of those. I think an SB2 is a candid valve head, isn't it? I'm trying to remember. I think we've had some of those at West Tech. Your next build is a Kawasaki. My vet vibrates without a counterbalance flywheel. Not, yeah, but it's externally balanced, so you have to have an external balance weight on it. That's pretty normal. But that's not the same as you still can lighten an externally balanced flywheel. That's all possible. That all works. Tim, happy to help, man. Live chat. We're live, all the way live. So we're going to end our poll there. I'm going to do a quickie poll. Maybe this might be 100%. Quickie poll. Okay, if I ran an inline 6-cylinder, 6 in a row, should I run a twin turbo setup on it instead of just a single turbo? So if I was going to turbocharge it, should I run it with twins and not a single? Yeah, right off the bat, one hundo. I'm fairly certain my leaf mulching and dust creation killed the rings. That's not good. All right, Julius, we'll see you. Check on the cattle. Watch out for browns. A 50-ounce 5-liter flywheel on a 28-ounce 302, and it vibrated like mad. I've done that before too, and it's not good. How much RPM have you tested on a 5-liter? We've gone to 8,000 on one. Have you tested PRC heads? Are those the Texas Speed ones? If so, yes. Yep, double pole action, pole on pole. We have heavy metal cranks on the Rover K series engines. As the standard balance was bad, only then could you really use a light flywheel in front assembly. So you guys did, and you made them internally balanced motors and then put light and flywheels on it. You can lighten up an externally balanced flywheel. You just machine it everywhere, and you can actually turn that into an internal balanced flywheel too. But it's just takes more work. As a Grand National owner, a single turbo is the way. Yeah, but a Grand National is a V6 though. That's a Toyota Toyota question. Yeah, just like a Supra one, right? A 2JZ. Joe says he runs 8,000 on his small block Ford, so he's building small block Ford race motors, I guess. And if you're doing like the old Cup motors, well, even the new Cup motors, I guess, and the sprint car motors, those are way up there. You can twin scroll a single 6, but you can't on 6 cylinders. I would happily provide twin Garrett internally gated factory Ford GT3540s for any inline 6-cylinder you want. Yeah, you don't got to send that stuff from Australia, man. We got turbos here, but appreciated. I bought my car from someone and they had replaced the clutch and flywheel. I clearly needed to redo it. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to be doing that pretty soon on a Metro. Compound twin. Yeah, we don't need to do a compound. Traumatic Superforms flashback. It's not even 1,000 horsepower. I have seen them put big singles on Supras. Think you can get a split intake like the exhaust for the V6. We don't need a split intake for twins on just the exhaust. And the way that the inline 6-cylinder stuff is a lot of the headers that they have on those are actually they're 3 into 2 into 1, or just 3 into 1s, and then there's 2 of them coming out. I know I'm disappointed at 70/30 right now. But there would be no reason to split the intake manifold. You'd at least need a connector between the two to join the plenums, because then, Helmholtz resonance with a butterfly valve in between the two. Guys would run 88 millimeter turbos at 8 pounds. Wow. Surge much on that? Can I get rid of my flywheel rumble with a better damper on the front? If you're transferring vibration from the flywheel, look at your motor mounts. We put a small turbo on a 306. Oh, the Ford one made a custom intake. They made good torque. Yeah, they make peak torque like down at 1600 or something like that. It's really, really low. So now I have to do if I run a 300 Ford, that's not the one I was talking about in this thing, but if we run that, then for that particular one, that there I think that they make peak power at like less than 4,000 RPM. I want to use twin GT35s on a 4200 for drag. Yeah, that's 1,000 horsepower plus stuff. Taylor, yeah, I'm surprised that the Big Bang stuff, those videos aren't my top videos. I sure thought that they would be, but honestly, they were made into videos 10 years after the fact. So, and at least 10 years after the first one. So maybe that's why, but still I'm surprised that they didn't do a lot better. But yeah, 1,500 horsepower. It's just a, silly amount of power. Let's see, Ryan. I'm going to scroll back and see what you were talking about. Oh, compound. Yep. At some point, I should also put the 2J stuff on the list. I think just go get one from a IS 300 or something because I see a few of those in the wrecking yards. I should probably put that on the list too. Imagine a 300 torque curve would be similar to a Barrett turbo. I don't think that I think a Barrett turbo is going to be higher RPM than a 300 is. I can take a look at we could take a look at the. So I'm going to see if I can find the. Oh, here we go. We're going to take a look and see. I thought that they. Although the thing I don't like is I don't like that they painted it white, but it looks a lot better than it did when it was stock. That's for sure. I like these guys. They do a good job. So after they put a cam and stuff in it, it made peak torque at like 3,000. But where's the stock one at? They ran a stock one. It only made like 100 horsepower or something. It was terrible. Yeah, their baseline was 88 horsepower and 217 foot-pounds. So that's and I don't know what kind of shape the one that they got was because they just ran it the way that they got it out of I think they got it out of a forklift or something, right? We've had hundreds of slogging mechanics videos before. Not sure the Big Bang title translates to non-Richard Holder customers. Yeah. I thought, Big Bang Theory, that should be popular. You really need that much power, considering most people can't get 100 horsepower to hook up on the street. First gen Honda Insight engine on the dyno. I don't think that makes very much power though, right? Do you want to run it with the electric motor hooked up to it too? Because wasn't that a hybrid? I like those insights. I'd like to have one. In fact, what I'd like is I'd like a Honda Insight with a Metro XFI engine with a turbo on it. That would be like my ultimate thing because it would get really good fuel mileage. Although I don't know, I'd want to strip the Insight so that it didn't weigh anything either. I mean, after you get rid of the batteries and stuff, it should weigh nothing. But the nice thing about the Metro XFI is it's like a 1,600 pound car. It weighs next to nothing. And that's important when you start going up hills. Because even at 60 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, the aero load on the car is not great. The weight is still a factor when you're doing that when you're climbing hills. It was a generator motor. Okay, I thought they showed that it was in a forklift or something. But yeah, a generator's fun. Yeah, that's right, Neil. 500 horsepower is a lot, especially wheel horsepower. You add lightness. You put 500 horsepower in a Caterham. Come on, hey, get out of there. You're gonna pull something. My dog decided to climb underneath it. Let me rest. Are you laying under there? Okay. All right. How many screens did you look up? I only have one screen. I just looked up other monitors, I think, but I got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven open. And the guy who put the Harbor Freight motor on the inside. Yep. Yeah, I saw the Aston Martin V12 going in there. I like Tony. He does good stuff. Yeah, Clifford. I'm familiar with those guys. Because today's poll, people are saying that they in the inline six. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's cool. I'm not talking about you don't need that to make power. We can make all the power that we want. I think that they made over 500 with the Power Nation guys. That was a good one. The guy who at the drag strip who James swapped first gen insight. I like the insights. They're very arrow. They're for um, Bonneville stuff. They're excellent. Yeah, Holly HP dual sync MSD box coil and all that fun good upgrade that you can send to me and go through. I never did well near plug or anything more. I don't think you need to worry about that. Is it if you have a small block Ford, just put a distributor in it. And if you need an ignition amplifier for what you're doing, rather than a ready to run distributor, I mean, an ignition amplifier is a good idea. And then take the if it's a boosted deal, take plug gap out, and you're away you go. Richard, you need to stop sharing so much knowledge. Just in a matter of 5 weeks of being around, I've gone from a stock 6 liter build to a turbo build to 408. Yeah, that's the thing. That's how it happens. But we're all guilty of that, including me. Smart coils, triple full day. What's better, boost or more boost? Yeah, my dog just had nose art. Yeah, the when Brady and Bruno come up here and they want to look at the screen, they want to look at the pulse. They always watch any kind of dogs or animals or anything that's on TV. They jump up on the thing and look and want to follow the dogs and stuff. Waiting on FedEx to deliver my tires. They got worn out. Local tire shop forgot to order them, so I found a better deal. Good. The audio is choppy. I wonder what's going on with the deal. Maybe Bruno's down there laying on the cord. Do 2Js make good torque? Yeah, they have long runner intakes on the NA motors. I vote yes, especially if running draw through carbs. That's good. No. One more minute. So we're at still 2/3 running twins. You're back when I face the monitor is better. How about if I bring my hello, hello. How's that? Is that better? I will be back later tonight. Sounds a bit muffled. Hello, hello. That's because I have a Flowmaster muffler on this thing. 3 cylinders, 1 turbo, 3 cylinders to an M90. I'm thinking about putting a blower on stuff too. I want to put a blower on a 6 cylinder, on an inline 6 cylinder. Actually, first of all, on the 4 cylinder trophy 4 cylinder, that needs a little blower on it, definitely. And on that note, it is time to go, but I will see you guys all tonight. Tonight, tonight, tonight.